Who's wrong and who's wronger? In this corner, followed by millions, James the Exploding Unicorn Breakwell. And in that corner, ignored by millions, Steve Dash Rinko Lever.
Hey everybody, welcome back to a middle of the night edition of Wrong and Wronger. Ignore the sunshine in my window, Breakwell's up, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, and raring to go. James, how are you doing in the middle of this grand night?
I am doing spectacular. I reached out. I said, hey, remember that podcast you almost died for? We skipped a week. Maybe we should do it again. Maybe later today, maybe in a few hours. And you're like, no. How about right this very second, because this is priority number one in my day. My long list of things to do with Mrs. Steve can wait, because you, James Breakwell, are my highest priority.
You know, as we were chronicling the lengthy agenda of our days, you mentioned, I thought about this for a minute, which is why I bring it up, James, but you mentioned you have to do yard work. And in the scant number of times that you and I have spoken over the 10 years or so of our relationship, you've brought up yard work often. And I thought this morning, you know, you do a lot of yard work for a guy with no yard. So is this like your man cave where you're just trying to get away from the family for a while? What's happening outdoors at the Breakwell estate?
It does generate a disproportionate number of work or amount of work, but you got to take into account a couple things. So first of all, I have pigs which actively destroy the yard. I mean, what part of my yard work is I got to go scoop some poop. You know, like most homeowners, I have to scoop up pig manure as part of my weekly tasks. But also,
we are apt to do, yeah.
I have some seasonal things though. I mean, I transformed the front yard into flower beds, and that's got to be weeded. And I was looking at it. We got the triple birthday party coming up Saturday, so there are going to be actual human beings coming over. Human beings who don't see us on a weekly basis, so their judgment is a little bit fresher. Everybody else who've already lowered their standards. And I was looking at it. I haven't put down mulch in a year, and I put down some in the backyard because I pull up. I'm trying to hide my shame. I've built a walls of bushes on many sides of the yard, like everywhere I can fit it outside the fence line, but there's some parts where the fence is right up against concrete, and I don't know how good you are at planting things, but I can't plant through concrete. So then I planted bushes on the inside of the fence line, so there's basically the bush wall switches sides of the fence, and then the pigs attacked the bushes and killed them, so I had to build fences to protect the bushes, and then they broke those fences, so I had to build new fences, then I had to replant the bushes, and anyway, those bushes inside those new fences, they're growing and things are going well, but everything else is growing around them. And I got tired of weeding, so I laid down mulch out there, and that mulch looks really good. And that makes all the old mulch out front look really bad. So now I have to go fix that mulch and put down new mulch there. So yeah, it's a spiraling cascade. And then, you know, we were renovating the porch. My father-in-law was doing most of the work, and then he left. He went to help other people, and that's just awful. He left me one task. I had to paint the columns. Took me months to get around to it. I finally did it yesterday, and I'll probably turn this into a newsletter at some point. But when you know it, so I go in there and I very clearly specify what I want. Now, I did not say the word exterior out loud, but I showed her a screen cap on my phone of the exact product I needed the equivalent of, and it was very clearly an exterior paint. And I went to another part of the store and grabbed an exterior railing and showed her I need it to match this railing. But again, did not say the word external out loud. I thought it was implied that a porch railing goes outside your house. And she said, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is. I color match this all the time. I can get you that right away, which she did. And she gave it to me as interior paint. And I painted 7 of the 8 columns in that. And I was very happy.
Oh no.
And then Lola came out, as his wives are known to do sometimes. And she gave me some constructive feedback on all the ways I might improve my efficiency. And I tried to brush them off, thinking I've been out here for 3 hours working. I'm doing my own thing. I'm just fine. Until she got to the point where she, unlike me, read the paint can to reveal that I had been painting with the wrong thing. And at that point, I could no longer brush off the criticism because I was clearly in the wrong. So then I had to go back to the store, get exterior paint to figure out, so then I had to put layer after layer over the interior paint to shield it. And anyway, so the painting is now included in the yard work as an open-ended process that needs to be finished up. That is to say that basically home ownership is a trap. It will consume your life, and if possible, own nothing, go run away to the woods and live in a tent that you don't own. The end.
Wow. I merely made a casual observation. And it apparently leaned into some intense emotional scarring that you've had going on. And it's deep-seated. Like, there's probably even more there. But I figure you could have treated your outdoor columns like the Golden Gate Bridge, that as soon as you got done from left to right painting them, the weather would have eroded sufficiently the very first column on the left, and then you just go back to the left and repeat the process week after week, month after month, until you actually die. Because I know your goal is to get away from the family, and your yard, bushes notwithstanding, is roughly the size of my hat. The handful of times I've been to your house, I have taken note of just how sprawling Breakwell Estate is. So you do need to get something in the works to create a long-term excuse to get away from the family, James.
I will say that. So it used to be less work when it looked worse. Like in its bad state now, it is better than the rock bottom it was before. I will say, but that the kids are home for the summer now. We've got to get the inside of the house cleaned up, and they cannot get along for the simplest of tasks. If we tell them to sort the laundry between lights and darks, you might think that would require you to take your hands and take laundry from one pile and put into one of two different piles. Sure. But what that actually requires is for you to scream at each other at the top of your lungs and then physically attack each other. And the most common word I will hear from the nearby floor is the word ow. Like, why? Why is there contact? Why are you touching each other? And this carries over to every chore. So when my children are doing chores inside, I most definitely do prefer to be outside.
If you had 4 boys, there would be harps playing inside your home. You would be able to just hear the bubbling brook, like the meditative Zen rock garden with water that you installed in the middle of the upstairs. But no, this is what girls do, James. You and I, we're above all of that fray.
Yes, you and I have never argued with anyone for any reason. We are products of harmony and grace. But I will say though that your criticism seems a little misguided. I think somebody in a glass house might be casting stones because you do more yard work than any other human being I have ever seen. I believe yard work is Mrs. Steve's full-time job. Like, it takes up all of her waking hours and probably some of the hours she should be sleeping. And then you come back when you had a job before you decided to almost die. You would come home from work and the first thing you would do is yard work, and the last thing you would do before you went to bed is everything was yard work with you, and it will never end. And that's not even to end up with a perfectly manicured garden and trodden upon by the occasional pig like mine. Like, you just have, it's just the outdoors. Like, it's the woods. It doesn't even need to be groomed, and there you are trying to hold back nature anyway. Explain yourself.
Well, and just to continue and finish your thought on this being Mrs. Steve's full-time job, that's why we're recording in the middle of the night here. Because when you tossed a potential time that we could record, I said, hey, I'm going to record with Breakwell at 1 o'clock. And she said, we need a power washer. And I said, I don't know that these two topics are related necessarily. And she said, they're at Home Depot. And I said, And then she said, so we're going to Home Depot to get a power washer. And I said, oh, well, that's interesting. So that, she's just adding another task to her long and illustrious task list here. But Breakwell, as you're bringing up the fact that I do at least measurably a little bit more yard work than you, I would venture to say my yard is measurably at least a bit larger than yours, insofar as I have grass. And I have a yard, and it does require mowing every now and again. I don't have the luxury of pigs.
But you have giant, expensive pieces of equipment worth more than my minivan, possibly worth more than my house, that does the work for you. You sit in these giant nature-destroying machines, and you just do a few laps around your property, and somehow that takes up all your waking hours. So you do cover more area, but you are aided by mechanization. I am out there going on raw muscle power, not a motor to be found, man. This is all me.
Wait a minute, you do have grass in front of your house. How do you mow your grass?
Well, the lawnmower does have a motor, but it is not a mower for propulsion. It is a mower for chopping. And I push that thing with brute strength. Never will you find a self-propelled mower or a riding mower on my property.
You know, we do have a patch of grass that requires a push mower. It's between the gate and the highway. And there's a fairly substantial hill, even though it's not very much in terms of like square footage. It's trying to think of a measure of area. But anyway, I mentioned that we had one of the Mennonite boys come and mow it before our son got back from college. And when he did get back, he's had to mow it once, and he's never mowed it before because I usually take care of it. Here's the point. We have a self-propelled push mower, and yet when he was only halfway done, he walked a third of a mile back to the house to get some water because he was exhausted from aiding the push mower, aiding the self-propulsion system to get that push mower up the hills. It's still a lot of work. So don't tell me that you, with your flat yard and your helpful neighbors bringing you over bundt cakes, that you would have to push as hard as we do to operate our push mower.
Okay, first of all, my neighbors hate me. You know that. I would not eat any bundt cake from them because it would surely be poisoned. Second of all, why are you mowing this in the first place? Like, if I don't mow, the city's going to come and put a notice on my door and tear down my house. If you don't mow, literally nothing happens. You choose to mow like 1,000 acres of your 10,000 acre estate, but you could choose to mow 0 acres and there would be no consequence. You could mow just enough to get from your driveway to your front door. You could call the rest of it natural habitat and be done. Your work is self-inflicted. My work allows me to be part of a society.
James, we have a little thing called pride out here. And the only part of our property that is visible to the general public are these 2 small patches of land between the gate and the highway on either side. They flank our driveway. I've been to your house, and I know that it hasn't been a lot, and I haven't given you a lot of notice, but I don't know that you've lifted a finger to beautify or straighten up anything around the Breakwell Estate front property in order for me to be impressed with you when I've shown up. In fact, I don't even know. It was in the middle of winter, and I think your front porch was still icy when I showed up that very first time.
So, first of all, you have not come over here in many years. Our acquaintanceship has degraded severely. So I don't think you've been over here since I did most of the landscaping. Second of all, I would never make my porch less treacherous for you. I just figured I'd roll the dice. If you fell, nothing of value would be lost. I served you pizza, which I paid for myself, and that is the Indiana version of bread and salt, like in Game of Thrones, where if you feed somebody bread and salt, I think it was, you can't harm them. They are safe. They are under your care. You came to my house. I gave you pizza. So once you cleared the ice obstacle course, you were under my protection, and no harm could possibly come to you. So your worry is misplaced.
You know, you could have taken a little of that salt and tossed it out on your front stoop so that it would be a little bit less treacherous, because once I broke bread with you, you were obligated for me to be able to return to my car safely, and yet you did nothing to fulfill personally that obligation.
If I recall correctly, the time you came when it was cold out, we ordered pizza. And mind you, we did not order from Domino's, which is the greatest pizza on earth, for $7.99 carryout. We ordered from another chain, which shall not be named. And it's like...
Oh, I thought it was a little mom and pop. That was a chain?
It's a chain, yeah. It's a chain. It looks like a mom and pop. That's how they get you. But those pizzas, I mean, if you buy 2 pizzas, I think you're looking at $40, $50. Like, it gets up there. And I bought that pizza for you because it was more expensive and I assumed it was better. And you chose to walk with me to get the pizza in the cold on that ice across publicly owned land that was not mine, rather than hanging out in my house, which I often avoid for yard work. So you were here for a brief time. You saw what my life is like, and you thought, you know what? I've been here 45 seconds. I think I will go for that walk with you to get out of here. So I don't need to hear it.
And God help us, maybe we'll die. But now we returned with pizza. I don't even remember. It wasn't a long walk, but it was a significant walk. It was 4 or 5 blocks.
What?
How far is it
What?
to the pizza? How far is it to the pizza? Isn't it about that far?
You know what? I'm going to dox myself. I'm going to say the name of the place. I'm going to say the exact distance. There's only so many of these changes.
Don't say the name
anyway,
of the
somebody's
place,
going to
but
pinpoint.
what is it?
It is 1 block south, and now I'm giving coordinates. It's no more. It is 1 block diagonal as the crow flies. There is a block between us that if you bisected, if there were not structures between us, there is 1 city block dividing us. But if you have to walk down 2 sides of the block, I guess you could call that 2 blocks. One.
Is that all it was? Boy.
Maybe your heart
In the
attack
company of
started.
James Breakwell, it felt like a mile.
Yeah, maybe we should have been more worried about your heart earlier if that was a great journey for you. The warning signs were there.
It was 2 blocks.
2 blocks.
Wow.
2 blocks.
I was going to say, whatever the distance was, I don't remember if we talked very much during that walk. Like, we do try to save most of our conversation for being on air.
It is true. It is a loss. Every time we stop recording, we talk to each other for like 30 seconds, and it just kills me. Just content nobody will ever hear, just burning it up. So that's why I save all my most mundane things to say to you for that point. And yeah, but it was a very short walk, but it was very cold outside. I don't do well in the cold.
Yeah.
I don't think you do well anywhere. So we probably did scurry along to get back here. And I will say that none of us fell on the ice. My property was perfectly safe. The pizza was overpriced and solidly mediocre, and then you never came back. So I guess the pizza achieved its intended purpose.
That wasn't the last time I was over there, is it?
I don't know. I want to see. That's the problem with memory. Is it's just completely inaccurate. You've been here 3 times, 4 times. They all blur together. The kids were a lot younger. There was a naked kid who came down the stairs for one of them. I think maybe while we were recording, even did we do a live podcast together in the dining room and a naked kid walked down?
Yes. Fortunately, the camera was facing the opposite direction. But there was a point during the recording. We were sitting at the end of your kitchen table, and you looked up and you gazed kind of fatherly at the stairs. That's not true. You looked like annoyed, and you said, "There's a naked kid coming downstairs. I got to go deal with this." And then I had to dance by myself for a couple of minutes to fill time while you went and dealt with your your domestic situation.
Well, here's the thing about all these stories that we just make up and misremember, is there's evidence of that on there. Like, somebody could scroll back through and find the exact episode where this happened, and it was probably quite a few years ago, and tell us exactly what it was. But I guess they won't be able to see outside, so they can't tell it. Well, actually, they probably will know if it was winter or summer. They'll probably know everything. They'll know more about us than we know about ourselves, because we record these things so that we don't have to remember, so we can purge them from our minds and let them be forgotten, knowing that they are safely stored elsewhere for future generations, which will also ignore them.
That's funny. I don't remember if it was winter, spring, summer, or fall either. In fact, gosh, I don't even remember. I don't specifically remember that happening, but I remember going back and watching it on the video because it was sort of a blur while it was going on. Because I didn't see your daughter coming down the steps. Your ears are specifically tuned to knowing every creak in your house, and you must have known something was in the air before it even happened. It's the clairvoyance of fatherhood.
It's, well, I mean, my stairs will keep us safe. Like, ninjas will never sneak in this house. You can hear, if you know what to listen for, you can hear those stairs stairs down the block. So I probably did. Knowing me, knowing my parenting techniques, what I probably did is I banished all children from this floor of the house. And then I heard somebody descending down the staircase, which even if they were clothed, would put them in the wrong. And then I looked up to see that they were not clothed, which made them even more wrong than usual. And then I took the steps to resolve the situation.
Well, as any good podcaster would. But yeah, so I think what you're saying, this whole thread started by you saying my kids were young because I remember one of them came down the steps naked while we were recording. That would no longer happen in the Breakwell house?
Oh, man, that's a loaded question. I would hope not. I just try to avoid that floor of the house. The kids are all on floor 2. Me and my wife are on floor 3. Shared living space on floor 1. So the less time I spend on floor 2, the better. Nothing good ever comes of it. I walk through there. There's clothes all over the place. There's toys all over the place. It is chaos incarnate. And that's why guests are most definitely not allowed on that floor. And I assume when the kids move out, we will just knock floor 2 off. We'll just get like a crane and a wrecking ball and just knock it out like you're pulling a tablecloth out from under a wine glass, and floor 3 will just fall on top of floor 1 and we'll just be a 2-story house, and floor 2 will vanish forever, saving us the trouble of cleaning it up.
Wow, I can picture floor 2 as being like one of those parallel universes from Stranger Things.
Oh, yes.
That you open the door and it's the 4th dimension, that it's not 800 square feet, it's an infinite amount of space with cobwebs and monsters and changing weather zones and everything else that can suck you into a void you never return from.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, there's probably 800 feet of livable space. I'm not going to do the math on it. Now I'm running through the math. You had a 10 by 10 room, that's 100 square feet. Their rooms are bigger than that. This is an old house with weirdly big rooms. So there's 2 bedrooms and a playroom, which is the main area, and then a weirdly big bathroom, and then a hallway and a laundry room. So there's really not that much space for them to mess up, but the amount of mess they can pack in there is impressive. But what's even more impressive, and to my earlier point, is the amount of time it takes them to clean it up. So I can go and I will be able to scoop pig poop and mow and lay out new mulch and move all of the furniture back up on the porch and do all of these things, probably 6 or 8 hours worth of work. And in that time, my kids will have cleaned up like 4 objects. They will have spent 6 straight hours screaming at each other, and for every hour they do that, they clean up like 0.75 objects. It is not a good return on investment. And that's why when we had to clean up for a recent party, my wife and I just did it ourselves when the kids were out of the house.
Yeah.
And in like an hour, the house was spotless. It was amazing.
But I notice you have to do it while the kids are away.
Oh, absolutely.
So that they're not rushing behind you to undo all the work that you've done.
And I guess I don't understand it, because they're not toddlers anymore. Like they just watch screens. They do things that require them not to move. So I don't know when this mess is being generated. Like, when did you even walk over here to touch this thing? And I think it's like a magnet past iron filings. Like they just walk in the room and the toys get sucked out of where they start out and strewn across the place. That's the only explanation I can find, because all the kids want to do is stare at their screens. So my hands-off parenting technique of having my kids on devices all the time has not saved me any mess, and probably makes 2 to 3 of my books a lie.
Now, you need a garage is what you need. I can't remember the back of your place. Do you even have a spot for a garage if you wanted to build one?
Well, I do, but then I would lose the yard I work in all day, and also my pig pasture. So I don't know what you're trying to do here, Steve, but that is not going to work.
I was trying to help you out is what I was trying to do, but it sounds like that would just create more problems than it solves.
Are you saying I would hide in the garage, or I would stick their stuff in the garage?
No. You would their stuff is sort of their stuff. You need to adjust around them, because it's the greater force is going to win out in the end. So no, I was looking for a hole for you to retreat into.
What would I do in the garage? Because I can't fix things and I can't build things. I'm not going to say like, I'm going to go work on the engine. Like, everybody's going to see through that lie. Like, what would the cover story even be for why I was out there?
you don't need a car lift and a cherry picker. Like, you would just need a desk and a computer where you could either watch things streaming in, or you could write things streaming out, or you could record this podcast anytime, day or night, and the lighting would never change because you're inside of a garage.
But how would I justify my presence in the garage? What would my cover story be?
I'm working.
To work in the garage. I need the minivan in the background. It will give this podcast the appropriate ambiance. That is
The minivan would be out parked in front of your neighbor across the street's house with a big sign on it that I can't even say what it would read.
Man, you know what's a delight? What absolute delight is there's an apartment building next to that neighbor. It's right across the street. And mind you, we are okay, and we had this fight before. We are in an area where a lot of the public parks for daily businesses. We are very close to businesses and other things that require people to come in on a daily basis. On work days, like the streets are packed. And so these, and apparently I didn't realize this was such an angering thing for her to have. She's on a corner lot, so she probably has, there's space for 6 cars adjacent to her property, and she owns 1 car. It's just her. I didn't realize how territorial she was of property she doesn't own. But the apartment building next to her got turned into an Airbnb. So there are constantly different people coming through there, and their rental cars are always the biggest, darkest SUVs you can find, and they are parking in front of her house all the time. And they wouldn't be there if there was just that nice, gentle family minivan. But no, she scared me away, and now she gets to reap what she has sowed. And this is why I will never eat bundt cakes from any of my neighbors.
And scene. All right, very well, that was well done, Breakwell, because we have just hit the top of 25 minutes as you concluded that story with what we call a callback, that you wrapped the beginning of the train to the end of the train. We have a perfect circle. And in that circle, I will step out and say, this has been another episode of Wrong and Wronger. You can join us again, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, who the hell knows at this point anymore, where you will learn how to piss off your neighbors who piss you off. But until then, until we meet again and learn all of this great life lesson, this is Steve Olinas, Dr. Steve for James the Exploding Unicorn Breakwell, saying thanks for watching, thanks for listening, give a bundt cake to your neighbor, and remember, as always, 2 wrongs can make a right.